on blast.
In the meantime, between time, the Eastern Conference took center stage on trade deadline day. As you mentioned, all of the teams at the top of the East making moves as they were jockeying for position. And what place to start than the Toronto Raptors? Grizzlies agreed to trade Marc Gasol to the Raptors in exchange for Jonas Valanciunas, DeLon Wright, CJ Miles, a 2024 second-round pick. Mr. Webster, first question, super easy. Who won this trade?
Yeah, the Raptors won this trade. If anything, because I know exactly where, like, you have Kawhi Leonard guaranteed until the end of the year now. Mm-hmm. Like, pull the trigger to make your team the best it can be to see if you can get there now. There's no point in worrying about what your roster is going to look like from, your top 4 to 12 players,
Yeah.
Like, just make that move, get the best player that you can, improve that from what you were getting from Jonas Valanciunas. And what I liked about this for the Raptors is that Marc Gasol is one player who fills in, like, 3 question marks that the Raptors kind of have.
Okay.
In terms of three-point shooting, a big guy who can pass, and interior defense.
I totally agree with you. And I think this one was super easy in terms of who won this trade. And I found it kind of weird because the reception from a lot of Raptor fans initially appeared to be, did the Raptors give up too much to get Marc Gasol? To which, once again, I'm left to question, are we watching the same NBA or are we just watching Raptor games?
I understand that DeLon Wright has a bright future ahead of him, especially if he can hone some of those rawer skills that he has. But you know what, man? You traded your backup center, your backup point guard,
your backup point guard,
the 11th guy off your bench, and a second round pick. You really, in the grand scheme of things, didn't give up a lot for Marc Gasol. Now, is Marc Gasol on the wrong age of 30? For sure. But you know what? In the Eastern Conference right now, heading down the stretch, it's a renter's market.
Yeah.
Get this guy to make your run. What's going to happen tomorrow? Who cares? Get the best player, the biggest name, the 3-time All-Star on your team if you can do it, especially if you don't have to trade any starting talent.
So here's the thing. Next year, the assumption is Gasol's going to pick up his player option, right? He has a player option for next season, 2019-2020, which is for almost $26 million. Ooh. Okay? I know on the surface people might be kind of hesitant about that, but you're buying that next year for this year of Kawhi Leonard. Because here's where the Raptors are. As soon as you trade DeMar DeRozan, this season becomes the most important thing because you have no chance in re-signing Kawhi Leonard unless you make a run this year. So Raptor fans, I found, were in a position where they were trying to have their cake and eat it too, right? Because all we heard was, we need to improve the team. We need to improve the team. But don't give up Pascal or OG. We need to improve the team. We need to improve the team. But don't give up Kyle Lowry. And it's like, guys, like what, right? Like,
yeah, what do you think these trades are going to, they're not going to materialize out of thin air here.
Yeah. And then now you make the trade for Marc Gasol and people are still like, oh, did they give up too much? And you said it. You're talking about JV who, cool, JV I think is what he is, right? Like he's good. He's a solid big guy, but he's your backup center. DeLon Wright, as you said, your backup guy. And DeLon Wright as well was going to be a restricted free agent at the end of the year.
Right.
Do we really think Masai Ujiri was going to re-sign him? Or did he already make the commitments to Norman Powell and Fred VanVleet? Right? Like, the writing's on the wall here. And I think the contracts are what people are really forgetting about, right? DeLon Wright wasn't going to be a part of your team next year anyways. CJ Miles was rotting at the end of your bench.
Yeah, CJ Miles had to go. Yeah.
Right? And you're talking about a second-round pick. Like, Marc Gasol is legit. And is he still at the peak of his powers? No. But at the end of the day, you're adding what? Your starting center and arguably the second best player on your team, right? Like your second or third best player on your team.
I'd say third, yeah.
But I mean, my point is you're adding like a very key part to your organization, to your franchise this season and giving up bench people, right? Like this is what I don't understand, especially after last year's playoffs where everyone tried to talk themselves into, oh, can you play 11 guys? We're going to play our bench in the playoffs. And it's like, no, it comes down to your 5-6 best players against the other team's 5-6 best players. Maybe 8 guys max. So if you can up your top tier talent, you do that. And that's what Masai did. And again, this was a move that was more so to show Kawhi Leonard, hey, we're trying to make a move this year, but also for all these Raptors fans, they still kept Pascal. They still kept OG. So I don't get why any Raptor fan would be upset about this.
Yeah, I can't see. Was there really a lot of blowback in the streets of Toronto today? I mean,
I just feel like a lot of people were questioning whether it was an upgrade and how much better the Raptors were. And I was watching The Jump today, and even Tracy McGrady didn't think that it was that much of an upgrade.
I was going to say, Paul Pierce said that it was, a lateral move.
And we know that Paul Pierce is just a Raptor hater, right? Like, we know that already.
Right,
but Windhorse was quick to point out, like, no, like, Marc Gasol is an upgrade over Jonas Valanciunas.
Yeah.
I don't care how anyone wants to put it, how anyone wants to dissect it. Those two players are not equal, right?
No, like, it's almost like Marc Gasol is the best case scenario for Jonas Valanciunas.
Exactly. Right? And so now you're adding someone who's going to start on your team, someone who arguably is your second option in your offense after Kawhi, someone who's going to be your second primary passer, probably going to be second on your team in assists in Marc Gasol. Like, I don't understand what people are talking about. I just question, like, what are we talking about here?
Yeah.
And I wonder, too, hey, Jonas Valanciunas, cool. He was a great Toronto Raptor. He's a very nice guy, a great guy in the locker room, sorry. He was here for a very long time, great with the media. It was all good. But it's winning time now, right? You mentioned it last week, Webby. All the, like, niceties and all the, like,
it's over.
Fun and games. It's go time.
Yeah,
right?
This is your opportunity to get to the NBA Finals. That's it.
Yeah. And again, once you gave up DeMar DeRozan, you already showed that you were all in if you're Masai Ujiri. So you had to make a move for this year and worry about next year. There's still spots they got to fill. I think there's like 3 roster spots to fill that are probably going to be a mixture of buyouts, and you'll probably see them sign Chris Boucher to, an official contract with the Raptors.
Right.
But overall, you're talking about a Raptors lineup right now, right, that features your starters. I would assume Pascal stays in the starting lineup with Gasol and Kawhi Leonard, and that's a pretty good front line to join Danny Green and Kyle Lowry. And then your bench, you still have OG, Freddie, and Serge Ibaka coming off your bench with Patrick McCaw, which is a part that people kept forgetting because they're thinking, oh, how do you give up DeLon Wright? It's like they already got McCaw anticipating a move like this could happen.
That's exactly why they picked him up, yeah.
Because who was the dude? Oh, Lorenzo Brown. Remember those Lorenzo Brown minutes early on in the year?
I do.
Oh, man. It's just super interesting, but I can't wait to see what this team looks like. And because you're going to get a rejuvenated, a hyped up, a hungry Marc Gasol, right?
Yeah, and this is something that I think that he's wanted over the last couple of years is that I'm sure he's licking his chops because he's going from one of the slowest offenses in the NBA in Memphis to a fluid offensive system in Toronto. I mean, we might see things from Marc Gasol that we haven't seen in a couple of years.
Well, you think about it, and even though he's 34, the guy is still putting up pretty much 16 and 8 a night, career high 5 assists a game, or I guess 4.7. I'm rounding up. But essentially, after Jokic, he's the second best passing big guy in the entire NBA.
Yeah.
You add that to who brought up this stat. There's someone tweeted out this stat earlier on. Shane Young, right? He tweeted out, Marc Gasol passes 65.7 times per game, third most in the league behind Ben Simmons and Nikola Jokic. Going to be a great facilitator in Nick Nurse's offense. Now he has more shooters, another versatile guy in Siakam to work with, and a badass like Kawhi. I like this for Toronto. I totally agree.
Yeah.
Right? He fits perfectly in. You mentioned it, Webby. He's a guy that can step out, knock down the three. He's not doing the like 5 up fakes like JV does before he actually shoots it. Or even Serge, who was just on like a 0 for 17 streak from 3, something like that, right? Like it wasn't good. This is a major upgrade. Like people out here, if you're trying to compare Jonas Valanciunas to Marc Gasol, just stop, because Marc Gasol is better than Jonas Valanciunas. So now this trade comes down to, are you okay with parting with DeLon Wright 3 months earlier than you were going to anyways, right? And CJ Miles, who wasn't really playing anyways, or a second-round pick? What are we mad at? Good move for the Raps.
Exactly. All of these pieces are second tier, and you traded them up for, like you say, a premier big man, a 3-time All-Star. You
Exactly.
do that 10 out of 10 times.
Do people realize that? 3-time All-Star, Defensive Player of the Year, and he might not be the same defensive player. Like, obviously, he won Defensive Player of the Year in 2013, right? But it's not like he was a super athletic Defensive Player of the Year. So even if he's a little bit older, it's not like, he lost his hops or whatever. It's more about positioning and being a smart defender, right?
Yeah, his game's always been below the rim.
Below the rim, yes. Is it the Steve Smith? What do they call it? Like the Steve Smith Low Five or something? They had it on NBA TV. It's like below the rim plays of the week or whatever. Something like that. But yeah, either way, I love this move for the Raptors, and I think it was a perfect mix of trying to make a move this year to improve your team while not giving up what people believe to be your young core going forward, which is something centered around Freddie and Pascal and OG Anunoby, right?
Right.
I don't know. I think it's a great move. One thing to point out, though, Webby, question for you, and this was from Jamar Hins on Twitter, okay?
Okay.
He says, another bizarre legend of longtime Raptors last moment in a jersey. Okay? So follow me here.
Okay.
If you remember, JV's last moment in a Raptors uniform was him getting fouled by Draymond and him hurting his thumb. Right.
The hand.
Which is why he was out for the longest time. Go back one step further, DeMar
Okay.
DeRozan. Do you remember DeMar DeRozan's last moment in a Raptors uniform?
Well, it would have been
Him getting ejected.
right against the Cavs, against 4, yeah.
Go back even one superstar or big-time player, franchise-type player before that. Chris Bosh. Chris Bosh's last time in a Raptors uniform was him getting fouled and having that facial injury that forced him to miss the end of the season. And remember, he didn't end up coming back.
That's right.
Right? And then he ends up signing with Miami. He probably could have came back, and people were kind of wondering, like, why isn't he coming back? Whatever, but ends up leaving, going to Miami. And then, of course, we all know Vince went down with the leg injury. We don't even have to deep dive into that. We know that one already. But isn't that kind of weird?
Jeez, you got to watch out if you get hurt. Let me tell you, if you're Kyle Lowry and you tweak an ankle late in the season, let's just keep your head on a swivel. That's very weird, though.
So you mentioned your man's Kyle Lowry. There was a lot of rumors leading up to the deadline about Kyle Lowry. Are you happy that they didn't make the move and trade Kyle Lowry?
Yeah, I mean, if you weren't going to get Conley back in that deal, I thought that deal of Lowry and JV for Conley and Gasol, that would have been – I still would have thought that would be a win for the Raptors.
I agree.
Because Kyle and Mike Conley are similar players. Conley might be a step or two better than Lowry, but the difference between Gasol and JV is so great that would have been a big pickup. But yeah, I'm happy they kept Kyle Lowry. It's good to hear that this is where he wanted to stay. He was happy he didn't get traded away. And you know what? When the going gets tough here in the playoffs and late in the regular season, it's good to have a guy like that. A guy who's been there before and who's conditioning now to reach those different heights when it comes to the postseason. He's got those. So I'm glad that he stayed.
Yeah, and here's the thing, too. Kyle Lowry knows that this Raptors team is really, really good, and they have finals aspirations, even before this deal for Marc Gasol. So obviously he wants to stay and be a part of that. Imagine the thoughts of getting traded to Memphis or getting traded to the Jazz, right? Like, you can be as salty as you want that DeMar got traded, or you can be as salty as you want towards Masai, but at the end of the day, this is a great situation for Kyle Lowry, right? Being an all-star again, and so you can see why he was kind of seemed he kind of seemed kind of flustered by the trade talks,
Yeah.
right? And hey, I get it. And I'm glad that he stayed because I get it. And I think you're going to get the chip on his shoulder Kyle Lowry again just because he wants to show, no, I'm here. This is my team. I'm still here to lead. One thing, though, with getting Marc Gasol is because I'm still worried about Kyle Lowry's back, right?
Right.
But I feel like Marc Gasol is going to help Kyle Lowry alleviate some of the playmaking that Kyle Lowry had to do, right? Because sometimes it felt all on Kyle Lowry's shoulders. But now you have Marc Gasol in your starting lineup. Obviously, we've seen Pascal develop a lot more of his game. He's able to handle the rock, maybe be more of a facilitator. But the creating of plays doesn't just fall on Kawhi Leonard and then what kind of mood Kyle Lowry's in that game.
I get what you're saying. And then, so now you've got a third look. You've got a third way of seeing the floor on offense.
Yeah, just another set of someone who's able to create plays. I think
you know
that's
what it is too?
Deal.
It's another adult.
Yes.
Right? It's a guy who's fought these wars before, a guy who's been deep in the playoffs before, knows how this works. Like, just having another adult on the court, I think, is a really good thing for the Raptors as well.
For sure. And one thing I like to bring up, too, is we talk a lot about how great JV and Serge have looked this year. And I know maybe that's part of the reason why, for some Raptors fans, it was tough to see JV go, because he was playing so well this year.
Yeah.
But one thing that we've said from the beginning is that a lot of the success that JV and Serge have had this year has been system-based. Nick Nurse has done such a great job in putting those two guys in positions to succeed, right? Letting them dominate the paint as the sole big guy on the floor. And now, instead of being like, oh no, well, JV was playing so well, why not think about what Nick Nurse and this system can do for Marc Gasol, right? Who's better than both Serge and JV. So what's he going to do in this offense where he's able to play a bit of the stretch five and handle the ball at the post and have the offense run through him at the top of the key? Like, I can't wait to see how that's going to play. Imagine him at the free throw line with, Pascal and or Kawhi cutting to the basket, Danny Green sitting in the corner spotting up. Like, this is going to be a great look for the Toronto Raptors. And again, the system that Nick Nurse put in, it's like Marc Gasol is almost the ideal big guy that you would want in that place. So, I don't know. Great move. And also, one thing to bring up, this was something that was talked about from last season as well. Don't you remember? I remember us doing this podcast and us talking about potential Marc Gasol deals last year, and it just didn't happen, right?
Gasol's name has been linked to the Raptors for a couple of years now. Yeah, like you say.
Yeah. It's been a while. I see Masai Ujiri is now talking finally because I guess it took a while for the deal to go through. He's probably also trying to make some moves.
Yeah.
He's got some roster spots to fill. But if we move on, overall from the Raptors, though, you like that move, Webby? Yeah, we're in agreement, right?
Yeah, we're giving that a thumbs up.